This video is going to cover how to create sand wash finish concrete. Some people call it sandblast, but there's a way to do it without actually using a sandblaster. And it's a finish that we use, as you can see here, in a few different ways. It's a nice quiet finish that's smooth on the feet but not slippery around pools. So clients like it for a lot of different reasons. As a designer, I like it because it doesn't fight whatever material I'm combining it with, and yet it's a more interesting finish than a broom finish. Here you can see where we sand finished, and then we did a light sandblast on every other square to give the two tones that you see here. But you can see that there's a sand texture, and that's really the why we use this finish. So let's get into the setup. What we do with most concrete is we have 4 inches of compacted to 95% or so class 2 aggregate base under what you see here. This contractor likes to use an inch of sand on top of that so that his concrete does not bind to any of the base rock. So there's a nice slit plane and there's no undue friction or grabbing between the base rock and the concrete. And then there are 2-inch dobies, and they're elevating our rebar cage. We have number 3 rebar, 18 inches on center, and that's kind of standard for patio type work. That can change if you're doing a driveway or something with more of a load on it. This is a really important part of it. Concrete cracks mainly because it moves. It is a brittle material, and when it moves, because the ground is lifting because of trees or from the clay swelling or whatever that might be, that movement ultimately is what's causing most of the cracking. So that setup I just gave you has been very successful over hundreds and hundreds of jobs in preventing undue cracking. So what we have now is the crew is pouring the concrete into the forms. Here's the setup. Look at that right before they pour. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the pour. The pour isn't anything special. They fill the forms with concrete, and then you're going to see a guy troweling it. I think they call that a bull trowel, but they do their first screed and get the concrete all settled into the forms, and then they're going to trowel it smooth and get it all ready for the top cast. So I'm going to talk about what top casting is. Top cast is a material that's a water-based retarder, and what it does is there's different grades of this material, and it's up to your contractor to figure out which grade of top cast he should be using to give him a light sand finish. If you want a heavier sand finish, then there's a different grade for that. And if you're removing more for existing, like let's say you're exposing aggregate, then that's a different grade as well. So there's different grades of top cast, and that gets sprayed on with a low pressure sprayer right after the finished troweling is done. So what you're seeing here is the day before this picture was taken, this area was sprayed with the top cast, and it's this blue-gray color that you can see here, and that lets you know what you've covered. And then that's going to be removed by the contractor. So that stays overnight, and it also, now you're safe if there's light rain or whatever, there won't be any problem because it's fixed the amount of penetration this retarder put on there as soon as it dried. And then you can leave this up to a day to 2 days, I believe, but check with the manufacturer. Here's a close-up of the material. So then what happens is the contractor comes in and removes this retarder, and he uses water and friction. And so you're going to see here that this contractor likes to use a floor polisher with a very fine grit polishing pad on it, and all that does is he feels that gives him the most even removal of the top casting material, and he's less likely to get grooves or streaks that you might get if you were using a broom and water or if you were using a pressure washer. Pressure washer, depending on the pressure, is another way to do this, but it can take off a little more than you want. So this contractor's done this lots of different ways and found that this is the most uniform way for him to get an even texture that he can count on. And I have seen what he described where they overwash it and you see streaks where the pressure washer was too intense. And then the other danger is using the wrong grade of top casting. So you want to make sure that you test that before you do an entire job to get the right level of top casting, or you're using a contractor who's worked this part of it out. So that's how we create a light sand wash finish, or a sand wash finish depending on what grade you want. And I think that's all I can tell you about it. Sand wash finish, some people call it a sand blast finish, but really good finish for the different applications. And here are a few more as you can see in these photos. Enjoy.